Constance with Mysterious Galaxy. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I am very excited because we are here to celebrate the sequel to The Ninja Daughter, The Ninja's Blade, with its author Tori Eldridge, and she is going to be in conversation with Jonathan Maberry. I'm very excited. Both of these authors are great friends of the store, and we even had Jonathan last night to celebrate his new anthology, Don't Turn Out the Lights, which was full of scary stories. I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Jonathan and Tori. Let them introduce themselves a little bit more in depth, give you a little bit more information about them as authors, and you guys are in for such a treat tonight. Two more things before I disappear. If you look down below, you will see the lovely Buy Signed Book button. You can buy a signed book by either one of these authors, which is very hard to get during a quarantine, by the way. So I just have to say, you don't want to miss that. But we also have an Ask a Question button. So if you have any questions for these authors, make sure that you ask a question down there below because they will be answering. Have an amazing event though, guys. Bye.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan Maberry. I'm a author in multiple genres as well as writing for comics and other projects. And I'm here with one of my good friends, Tori Eldridge, and this is her second book. And I've been along for the whole journey with these books, and it's been a delight to see the growth from the early drafts up to the second of a series that's actually amazing. I mean, it's getting great positive reviews. It has a loyal fan base, and the books are fun. They're dark, sick, twisted, weird. Fun. That's a tough balance too. So I'm going to let Tori introduce herself because she has a pretty interesting background.
Oh my gosh, this is always a pleasure. This is just worth it just to hang with you, Jonathan, I got to tell you. But yeah, okay. So, most of you know me. I'm from Honolulu. I'm Hawaiian, Chinese, Norwegian. I started out my weird career path as an actress, singer, dancer on Broadway, television, and film. Did some screenplays, got a little success there. People told me to write novels. I did. Then I caught the martial arts bug and got a little sidetracked, to the tune of Fifth Degree Black Belt Ninja. I got a little obsessed. And started writing, empowerment and traveling the country and teaching, ninja seminars and this, that, and the other thing. But I always wanted to go back to writing. And so I got back into that, and I decided to time a whole shift in my life around my 50th birthday, retired from teaching and dedicated myself to becoming a novelist. And it took a while, and there were other books that I wrote. The Ninja Daughter was the first book published, but not the first book written. There were short stories published in anthologies and things like this, and it was very exciting. And then came the 2-book deal for the Ninja Daughter. And that was a very special book and a very special series because it draws so extensively from my life. Because Lily, if you don't know, Lily Wong, that's my ninja heroine. She is a Chinese, Norwegian, modern-day ninja in Los Angeles with Joy Luck Club family issues. She's me. No, not quite, pretty close though, pretty close. So it's an interesting thing, and it's real close to my heart. So that's just kind of the quick overview.
Yeah, and you jumped over a lot of interesting little points in there too. Cats, back when it was a great play before it became an awful movie. You were tell us about that real quick. Your involvement in the original Cats.
Oh my gosh. I was in the original first national company. So we opened a year after the Broadway company, and it was a really special, everybody wanted to be part of the first national because they wanted to make changes on the Broadway company. So we got all the original people as though they were putting it on us, Andrew Lloyd Webber and, Trevor Nunn, Jillian, they were all there. And that was really exciting, really, really exciting. And I stayed with that for 6 months in Boston and a stint in DC. And then I decided, I had done some other Broadway stuff too, but I had decided to come out west and try my hand in television and film.
And did a little splish splash on a certain popular comedy series, I believe. Was that all about?
I landed a series regular stint as a Love Boat mermaid. Remember that? The Love Boat. Me and Terry Hatcher, and then 6 other awesome women. We, there we were for a year. We were the resident act on the cruise liner. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun, Yeah. And there were other things here and there, but that's the one.
Yeah, that's one of those stop and pause moments when you were a Love Boat mermaid. When I first heard that one, I'm like, okay, this explains so much.
Oh my, it does. Oh,
your sense of fun for one thing, because despite a lot of what you deal with in your books, you have a sense of fun, a sense of joy, and quite a bit of a sense of upliftment. I mean, that's reflected in the podcast. You want to talk about that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's how you and I really got to know each other. We had met at a conference, Heather Graham's Writers for New Orleans, but we really connected when you were a guest on my Empowered Living Radio podcast. I did 57 episodes, and I had people, amazing authors, but also all sorts of people. I had Marianne Williamson when she was running for Congress, talking about, wait for it, love and politics. Oh my gosh, right? She was a guest on my show. Hilarious. I mean, I had all these people, but we would come on and we wouldn't talk about what we were doing. We would talk about what was important to us. Well, except for her, she did talk about what she was doing, everybody else. But you and I, we talked about paying it forward. And that's when we really got to know each other, because it's all about significant conversations. And I'm all about empowerment. So as dark and gritty as Lily can get, I still look at it as, an empowerment story.
Yeah, it is. So for those who may be watching this either now or later, because it will be archived, if you have not yet read Ninja's Daughter, give us a little capsule of that, no spoilers, a little capsule of that, so we can ease into the talking about Ninja Blade.
All right, that would be this fun yellow book. I have to hold it like this so it doesn't do that weird little,
glowy thing.
Oh yeah, the glowy thing. It's kind of fun, right? So in the Ninja Daughter, Lily ends up battling the Ukrainian mob and sex traffickers and her own family, who have no idea what she's doing, to save the lives of 2 women and an innocent child. And she was thrown into this. She changed her whole life when her younger sister was raped and murdered. And this happened when Lily was first year in college. Lily is 25. And so that changed the course of her life. She grew up doing Chinese wushu. You probably know what Chinese wushu is. For those who may not think Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, okay? So it's Chinese martial art, performance art. And so she could do that since she was a little kid, and that's great. Her Hong Kong immigrant mother approved of that. That was fine. But then when she was 12, she discovered this ninja throwing, training partners like confetti in the park, and she begged, to be taught this, but she had to keep it on the sly because, strange middle-aged Japanese man is not going to go over big with Hong Konger immigrant mother with her 12-year-old daughter. So that was, on the sly, and she did both of these. But when her sister was murdered, that, hands off, she dropped out of college and was the ninja all the way, and he helped train her, and she works for a women's shelter. And, protecting and rescuing women from, who need a big sister. Let's put it that way.
Now, both of us are martial artists. I mean, we're both lifelong martial artists. Everybody has a different path in there, and we know Lily's path in there. How did you get involved in ninjutsu?
Yeah, I was one of those moms sitting on the bench watching her 5-year-old son do karate. He was in Tong Soo-do. And at that point, I thought I had retired from dance. I kept getting pulled back into it. I ended up, getting a little ringy ding. Hey, you want to do the motion capture for Final Fantasy? We're going to fly you out to Hawaii for the audition, for the interview. And the next thing I know, I was doing the lead and the sub lead for that. So I kept doing these projects that would pull me back. But I thought I had retired from dance. And so there I was, a gym rat and whatever. And I'm watching my son. I'm like, I could do that. So I had to try, and I just took to it like crazy. I mean, first day it was like I performed the first 2 forms, the first 2 kata solo, because I've been watching it. So I knew it. And my teacher knew I knew it. And
your
it was,
choreography background helped you learn it. Yeah.
Absolutely. As a dancer, and especially in Broadway, you have to dance all forms, right? And so what happens is that your physical vocabulary becomes huge. So there really wasn't a movement that my body hadn't done. It was just a question of in what combination and to what purpose. And so, I took to it, and it was so exciting, and I never stopped. And then I went from that to ground fighting and kickboxing. I was doing all of that at the same time because I just shot up the ladder. I mean, a year and a half in, and I was on the teaching staff and, teaching. And then I started doing ninjutsu, To-Shin Do Ninjutsu on the side because, they wouldn't promote me to black belt because I'd only been there a year and a half, even though I was teaching. So I was doing both at the same time and got my black belts in both of them within a couple months of each other. And then it got ridiculous. I was just teaching, ninja stuff in the Tong Soo classes. And I went, I've got to make a choice. And so I just went wholehearted with that.
Nice.
So yeah, it's fun.
So with the, some people have read, a lot of people have read Ninja Daughter. Do they need to have read that to be able to read Ninja's Blade?
No.
Because some reviewers have said one thing or the other. I personally don't think so, having read them both. But tell me why people can jump into this one.
Yeah, I've actually had a couple of bloggers and reviewers who love the Ninja's Blade, and they had never read the Ninja Daughter. And, one of them said, oh my gosh, I just ordered the Ninja Daughter and I can't wait for number 3. So she's reading it in all these different orders. So that was very important to me. I wanted to make sure that I dropped you into the family and, all these ongoing characters so that you felt like you had enough to be right there and enough of a backstory. So it takes place 4 weeks after the first one. And if you've read The Ninja Daughter, it had a very exciting ending. A lot of stuff going on. A high body count. Yeah. So, I have a thing about violence, and maybe you do too. In fiction and in television film, I really believe that it has an impact and should have an impact on you, whether it is done to you, whether it is done by you, whether it is done around you. So, Lily didn't just escape all of that clean. The second book starts with her dealing with a lot of that. And, flashbacks and problems and doubt and all these kinds of things. And so it really, you jump into that. So you get a sense of enough of what happened in the book before to understand what's happening with her, but not enough to spoil it for you.
Yeah, the elements of PTSD and trauma are very finely played out in that. You don't hit people over the head with it. But you're aware that the character is carrying baggage. So I think that you don't have to have read Ninja Daughter, though I think it's so important to do it just because it's a really good book and, it follows this character. But a lot of, in a lot of fiction, they don't, a hero, or heroine goes through a big battle, book ends, they start the next book as if nothing has ever happened to them.
Right.
And, when I was a teenager, I thought that was weird. Now, as a stately adult of years, I find it very weird because I know what people carry with them. I know what does not go away, and it's very difficult to work it right. Did you do any specific research on PTSD for this?
No, but I have friends that I've watched go through it, and so. It's just that kind of a thing. But actually, that's not true. I did do a bit of research, come to think of it. You know what? I'm starting to remember. This book took a lot of dang research. I got to tell you, this sucker scared the bejesus out of me. So I had to do a lot of research about a lot of things with this book. In fact, the entire book came out of research. The characters, it's not balancing. Hold on. The characters came out of research. The plot came out of research. All that I knew after writing The Ninja Daughter, because, by the way, I started writing this book before I got the book deal, because I know I couldn't write a book in a year at that way. So I gave myself a whole, head start. And all I knew was I wanted to do a deeper dive into sex trafficking. So I had to start with all that research. So to your point, after I started with the plot and writing and realized that PTSD was going to become a thing, then I had to start doing, additional research on that.
So what can you tell people about Ninja's Blade without spoilers? And it's always tough to talk about your book without spoilers, because we always want them to be excited about what happens. But what can you tell us about Ninja's Blade, rather?
Yeah, it deals with some really dark and gritty things. Like I said, I wanted to do a deep dive into the commercial sexual exploitation of youth. Whoa, right? Big, heavy thing. And it's a real important thing in Los Angeles. I mean, it's a lot of that going on. So I started just researching everything. I discovered this amazing organization, Children of the Night, and Dr. Lois Lee, who founded that, and all of these interviews with survivors and, news reports and this and that and the other thing. And it became very clear that this isn't just targeting one, a socioeconomic. This is all of our kids. All of our kids are in danger. And there are so many ways that these teenagers can be lured, tricked, coerced, kidnapped, forced into this world. And they all have these different stories and come from these different backgrounds. And so I wanted to show that. And as I was researching, these characters started to appear that showed all these different things. And I was like, oh my God, I love this character and this character. And so from that came this plot. And it begins, I can tell you this, it begins with, there is a prep school gal, Caucasian redhead prep school gal from real ritzy neighborhood, who was in the life, and Lily meets her at the refuge, Alicia's refuge. And shortly after that, this gal is abducted. And so Lily is called upon to go and rescue her. So Lily has to find her. This is the MacGuffin. This is what is driving everything, right? Lily is hunting down Emma Hughes. Where is Emma Hughes? But at the same time, Lily is dealing with a lot of her own stuff and dealing with some racial issues. We've got a lot of things going on right now in our country with race, right? A lot of stuff. And if we're going to get through this, all of us need to do our own introspective work and check in on where we are with things and what we're doing. And so I really wanted to make sure that Lily was part of that introspection. I wanted to make sure that she was checking in on herself, and that maybe people were even calling her out on it. And so that's a real interesting thing when you have a biracial character, heroine, powerful, getting called out on some stuff. I mean, that's an interesting thing. So she's got a lot of stuff going on, and she realized she spies these other two girls, Dala and Ana Lucia, and now she's concerned about them. So she's concerned about them. She's trying to find Emma Hughes. Oh, and I forgot. Her mother is turning 50, and Gong Gong and Popo are coming in from Hong Kong to make her life a living misery. And so that's a problem. So there's, you were talking about, dark, gritty stuff, but it's lightened by this family stuff and this tension. Oh, and there's Daniel Kwok. There's a little romance in this one.
Yeah, there is. Now, just want to go back to the sex trafficking element for a second. I mean, most people don't have a clue of how pervasive this is. There are more people in slavery in the world now than have ever been. Sex trafficking is massive and horrendous. And unfortunately, people who are in the more consensual side of sex work get lumped in with this as if they're all disposable people within our society. There's this weird inability for compassion in a lot of folks for people who are in that life. Mm-hmm. And your character is very tolerant. She's very accepting, even though she's dealing with her own stuff. She's very accepting. That's an unusual thing to find in this type of fiction. So what made you go in that direction to give that element of empathy without being preachy about it?
Mm. Well, as I said, everything came out of research, right? And so the thing that really became very apparent is if you are younger than the age of consent, you are not a sex worker.
Right.
You did not choose this. There is no such thing as a child prostitute. There are prostituted children and prostituted teenagers. And so when you realize that, the whole thing changes. And that's something that Lily understands from the beginning, and she becomes even more attuned to it as the book progresses.
Yeah, and before we open to questions, we have a few waiting. One of the things I loved most about the book, and I'm moderately critical, as most writers are when we read someone else's book, we always think how we would write it. One of the things that most appealed to me was the empathy that's thrown or shown all the way through it. And there's a great degree of information imparted to the reader without it ever being you on a soapbox as the author. Now, is that something that comes seamlessly to you, or is that something that happens during one of your drafts?
I'm very conscious of it when I'm writing, very conscious of it. Because I don't want to do the whole information dump, right? Empathy, I would say, is part of me. That's a very big part of me. There's a lot of me in Lily, and that would be one of the things. And so, there are characters in here who your opinions of them will change in the course of this book, as Lily's opinions of them change. And things like that interest me because I think that happens in real life, right? We have an idea about somebody and we get to know more about them, and our ideas change about them and they evolve and things of that nature. And so that happens a lot in this book. And I think it's fun to take the reader with me as she discovers that.
Reminds me of something my jiu-jitsu master once said, that your mind is the one thing that should never be a fixed point.
I like that.
And that shows up with your characters, because the characters evolve. Even the bad characters have dimension to them, which again is when you have vile characters, it's hard to give them dimension because we hate them so much. But without dimension, they are not believable, and therefore the whole substance of the story becomes, nothing. And you're good at characters. You're really good at characters here. So
I appreciate that. It might be the actor background. I think that helps a lot, to tell you the truth, because I was a method actor and I feel like I'm a method writer.
Actually going to be a question I had, because that empathy can't be, you have a degree of it by yourself, obviously, but to bring it to a different medium than what you were trained for, shows that you understand the scope of what understanding character is about, and that makes me happy as a reader of your books. All right, so we're going to take some questions. We have 4 so far. Let's see. One from Mysterious Galaxy. Since you have a strong connection with TV and movies, do you see these books being made into film?
And by strong connection, what she's referring to is my husband is a television film producer. So he did the Equalizer movies, and he's got a new big movie in development with Benedict Cumberbatch to star in and co-produce, and some other cool things going on. And so that's the connection, right?
And
say what?
And your own past, your own history with it.
Oh, right, of course, in my own past. But, I don't really I can't pick up a phone and call the head of whatever. They're like, oh, the Love Boat, what? They don't care about me. But what my husband and I are both in agreement on is that the Lily Wong books are most suited for television. And that's because when you have a television series, the plot, the season, all that, it's great. You need it, right? It's exciting. But first and foremost, you want to hang out with those characters. And so the Lily Wong series is not just Lily, it's Lily and her parents, Baba, her North Dakota Norwegian father, who for some amazing reason is an authentic Hong Kong cuisine chef and owns a restaurant above which she lives. And by the way, maybe he's Norwegian, right? Why is her last name Wong? You're going to have to read The Ninja Daughter to figure that one out.
Yep.
So, I mean, there's him, and he has got to be one of the most endearing characters ever. And then there's her mother, and I always think of Michelle Yeoh when I'm writing her. I always think of Michelle Yeoh. I mean, she's so classy and all this. Love her. So there's that. And then there's the, Alicia and Stan Reiner. Alicia's from Compton. Oh my God, she's so awesome. And then her husband is this New York Jew, former stockbroker, and they live in Culver City, and they run this refuge. I mean, they're so great, and all these characters, there's Paco, who runs the taco stand that she saves. And you'll have to watch for that, but he's an ongoing thing. There's all these characters, and then the people who work in the kitchen. Anyway, my point is, that's what you love about a television show, right? You want to hang with them. So.
Yeah, so you see it more as a TV show than a film.
I think so.
Yeah, me too. I was dream casting it while I was reading the first book. So
Who were you thinking of for Lily?
The woman who stars in Mulan. And I don't remember her name, but she, she's the kind of person that
Yue Ling, Jing. Oh shoot, I had it before.
But the reason I thought about her is she doesn't look like she's going to be tough, and that's one of the things about a character like that. There in martial arts, there's a thing called the arrogance of power. People who are big and strong tend to assume that they're going to overwhelm anyone else, and there's a lot of that when people go up against Lily, because she looks like she might be a pushover, not so much a pushover.
Yeah.
So an actress who doesn't look like she's going to be tough, but can Hulk out when she needs to. Yeah.
Right. I was kind of thinking of maybe like Chloe Bennett from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I hear that's closing. So
that show just ended. So, she's a big choice for me too. And she can fight. She can do choreography really well. So.
Yeah. And she's biracial.
Yes.
She's half Chinese.
That's right. She is. I forgot she was biracial.
Mm-hmm.
So, Chloe Bennett.
I know.
Unemployed right now.
I know. Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a question from Dennis Crosby. Both writing and martial arts take extreme patience and discipline. What did you find to be the greatest challenge with each endeavor, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Oh, boy. Yeah. Everything that I have done has required extreme discipline and structure. From dance to martial arts, even singing, but dance, martial arts to writing. And they all have that same quality of, I didn't feel like I had freedom of expression until I had a certain degree of mastery on the skill. And so I'm one of those people who really believe that freedom comes from an understanding of skill and craft. And my superpower, if I have one, is self-discipline. And so that's always been a huge thing for me. So I think that's why I really took to martial arts. And I was very fortunate in that I was a stay-at-home mom. So I didn't have to work, which meant I could be completely immersed in the martial arts. And so that was, I'm trying to think, what was the big challenge? It all just felt so exciting and so right and so invigorating that every time I faced a challenge, it was like, okay, then that's what I'm going to work on. The forms, they came so easy to me when I was doing Tong Soo Do, but the fighting was something completely new. So I took private lessons in fighting, with one of the stars on the Chuck Norris fighting team. And we would do boxing stuff, by the way. There's a scene in The Ninja's Blade in a boxing ring. Go figure. So there's that, right? Just so you know. Now, writing was interesting because I've been a kinetic, athletic person my whole life, right? And so turned 50 and I orchestrated this shift to become a full-time writer. So from the time that I turned 50, I'm 59 now, so 9 years, right? Right from the get-go, I said, I am going to write all day. This is my job. I wake up and I start working, creative or on the business or research, it doesn't matter, full day. And I do this 6-7 days a week, every now and again, I'll take a couple days off.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, exactly. Except you have a greater output.
Been
it
doing
doesn't
just been
come
doing
out.
it longer. Just been doing it longer. That's all.
Okay. Oh, hopefully.
Okay.
So here's the big thing that was hard for me in the transition. Holding still. That was really, really hard for me. I stopped moving and I fall asleep. My back cramps, my neck cramps. It was physically exhausting to be a writer. And here, this is coming from a Broadway dancer black belt person. And I was like, this is kicking my butt. So I had to do a bunch of stuff where I would write standing up, and then I would write sitting down. I'd write kneeling. I'd write on the floor. I'd write in splits. I'd write in all different things just to keep my body moving and shifting. And that, it was a lot easier to do the mental focus than it was the physical endurance of just writing.
Our friend Kevin Anderson hikes in the Colorado hills and dictates while he all his first drafts are dictated. That's moderately insane, but he gets a lot of books done. So I think he faced the same challenge that sitting still all day long is tough.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for me having to walk Rosie all day long, I'd be probably at my desk too.
Right. Yeah. I can plot and I can work out chapters in dictation while I'm hiking, but I have yet to be able to dictate words that are good enough to want to see on a page.
Yeah, I agree. And somebody, Yvonne Navarro, posted that Kevin doesn't transcribe his own dictation. He doesn't. He dictates, he sends it off, he then sits down and does the revision. But still, the man hikes all the freaking time.
Yeah, okay, I love that.
Another question here. How many books are planned for this series? And do you have any idea of what book 3 might be?
Oh, I'm writing book 3, so I can tell you I most definitely know. And here's a hint. She goes to Hong Kong.
Do we have a working title?
Yeah, we do. We've got.
You can share?
I believe I can. It's called well, what the hell? It's just us. The Ninja Betrayed.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah. She's going to Hong Kong in the height of the September 2019 protest. So that'll be fun. Right. Yeah. As far, and of course there's all sorts of things going on. As far as the trajectory, the arc of the entire series, no, I don't have one. I look at it as an open-ended series. I'll keep writing Lily as long as I'm inspired to write her and as long as people want to read her.
Cool. And I've got also, weirdly, even though we're on Crowdcast where there's an option to ask questions, people are texting me questions. So I'm going to ask 2 of those. Yeah. This happened last night for a different panel where people decided just to text me. So this question is, do you, if the show is made, if a TV show is made, will you do cameos as maybe her instructor? And I know her instructor's a guy, but, would you do a cameo after Hitchcock your way into the show?
Well, let's put it this way. I wouldn't volunteer for it. Here's an insider thing. Half of my face was paralyzed 2 days before my eldest son was born. It was Bell's palsy, right? Right. But I had kind of, separated from acting, by then anyway. But there's remnants that, so if I ever give you that pirate eye, I'm not flirting with you. It's just some weird thing that my face has decided to do. So, it's not the most comfortable for me to be in camera. I was oddly enough invited to do a cameo on a zombie film, Cholo Zombies. It was hilarious. And I was me in a gi holding the ninja daughter. And I was supposed to be like the mother of this gal who had just, a reporter who had just gotten her butt kicked and she was in a hospital bed. And it was hilarious. Yeah. But there was one point where he said, okay, so now we're going to zoom in on a close-up of Tori doing this thing. Oh my God. I was like, seriously, can't you just like back up and say we did it? It's like all of a sudden it's like, really close up and you want me to smile? That's when everything really goes haywire. So yeah, I'm not going to be volunteering for it, but I'd do it if somebody wanted me to.
Yeah, I got asked that a couple times about V-Wars and an upcoming movie I have in development. Actors are tiny and I'm the size of Bigfoot. So, I'm not sure that would be the best look. This big, hairy old guy, walking around with all these very young actors or small actors with zero body fat. Not sure that's my future. Not sure it worked for Hitchcock either. Okay, another question here before I get back to one of the text ones. Do you feel that being a method actress has translated into your writing, and how do you get into the characters' heads?
Totally.
Do you have to write from each character's perspective? And do you ever feel like getting into their headspace has positive or negative effects on you?
Great question. The short answer is yes. I'm totally a method writer. I really get into it. I also read things aloud. I read all of my dialogue aloud as I'm doing it. I read it in character. So I'm talking to myself. My husband will be calling from the other room. Did you say something to me? I'm like, no, I'm writing. Leave me alone. I do fight scenes that way too. Just saying. So I'll give you an example. I was writing something for the third Lily Wong book, and it was like this thing between Lily and her mother, and all these emotions are coming up, and I'm writing the dialogue, and I'm speaking the dialogue as I'm writing it. So I'm being her mother, and I'm being Lily, and all of a sudden I just sob. I mean, ugly sobs, right? And I'm writing and I'm talking and I'm sobbing, and it's hilarious. And I get to the end of this thing and I'm like, oh. And so I had to go have a cup of tea, and then I was fine.
That's cool. So another one of the questions. Let me get back to it. Which writers? This is a classic question. We all get asked a lot, but it's often a good question. Which writers, and specifically which books, influenced your desire to write?
That's always a hard one for me to answer. I don't know, because I didn't, come to this with like a role model or a genre or following a certain author or, modeling myself after, someone. I will tell you that the book that changed my life for reading came when I was 7th grade, and I read Pearl S. Buck's The Good Earth. That had a life-changing impact on me. It connected me to my heritage and just sent me on a quest for all of these Asian-centric novels, and I was just devouring them. And of course, that got me reading everything else. I can tell you that there are certain contemporary authors that inspire me, for different reasons. I loved Barbara Kingsolver's The Poisonwood Bible.
Yeah, Poisonwood Bible. Fantastic book.
Yeah, there was something about that was incredibly moving. When it comes to the nature of the economy and lushness of writing, I always think of F. Paul Wilson. He has an efficiency that is still so engaging that really.
Talking about the Repairman Jack books?
Yeah, but the one that really got me was Black Wind.
Oh, Black Wind.
Yeah, that was really something. So, and then there's that, big guy in the other window over there, but he's already got it. Yeah.
We have another question here. What's the difference between fighting in real life versus how fights are written in books or portrayed in film, especially with Asian martial arts?
I assume you're talking about other people's books and films. Fights happen real fast. They happen fast. They're over fast. They're kind of, they're not as, wow, all this stuff going on and things like that. And so, who I thought did it really well was Bourne Identity. Yeah. I really loved those fight scenes, right? They were short, they were to the point, they were gritty, they were efficient. And the way they shot them, they had just enough, slowing it down to be able to appreciate it, and effects to be able to appreciate it. But it was raw and it was visceral, and I loved it, So, but a lot of, depending on the kind of movie, especially if it's like a Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, that's not what you want from it, right? You want the beauty, you want the pageantry of it. You want the mysticalness. You want them to be flying in the air and spinning around in circles.
Yeah.
And that's fun. So I think depending on the genre and depending on the type, you want different things, and that's cool. In my books, I'm going for authenticity. As much as I can, I want to make it as real as possible.
Now, to that end, though, since most fight scenes take a couple of seconds, God knows I have familiarity with that. When writing a fight scene, to write it in this, that quickly is 2 sentences and it's done. So, how do you manage the trick? And every writer has their own solution for making this, building the scene so that the reader can follow the dynamics of it, understand what's going on, while still keeping the pace moving along. What's your secret for that?
Wow, that's a really great question. I try and lock into the emotion of the fight. So it's not just about what is happening, but about what that point of view character, in the case of Lily Wong, it's obviously Lily, that point of view character, what they're feeling in this fight, and viscerally what is happening in there. And so as I'm, writing a particular, this happened and that happened and, that happened, it's also incorporating these emotions and visceral experiences with her. And then I also try and take a little bit of moments where she can be thinking, right? Where she's recalling something that sensei taught her or something that she's seeing. Have y'all seen The Equalizer, the first movie, where he walks in and the eyes and he's looking at this and he's looking at that, and you can see all the things he's planning and whatever. So if that was a book, right, we'd be in his head. He would be looking over there and imagining what that corkscrew is going to do and what that, paperweight's going to do and what that little shot glass is going to do and all these things. And so I put those in there. And I think the trick is not spending too much time on either the emotion or the thought process, that you slow down what's happening. So there's a balancing act.
Now I got another text question. This is funny. Is Lily Wong ever going to team up with Joe Ledger in a story? We should do a short story sometime.
I'm willing.
Yeah. We'll have to make a point of that. That'd be fun.
All righty.
All right. Let's see if we have more questions here. No, I'll stick with the questions I have then, because I still have a bunch. One of my favorite things is talking about scenes that we felt that at the end of it, we should have gotten up and, taken a bow. Like that's me when I know I'm doing it right. Because we also all get imposter syndrome too, when, we feel like, what the heck am I doing writing a book? But there are moments when you write a scene and you feel like this is why I'm writing a book. What are some of your moments from the 2 books you've had published?
Boy.
That do not include spoilers.
Not include spoilers, right? That ugly sobbing scene, that was one. Also with her mother in The Ninja Daughter, there's this scene where they appear to be talking about real estate. And they're really talking about something very important, and a whole relationship shift is happening. That was really interesting. The scenes with sensei are some of the most meaningful scenes. I had a reviewer say that she was going to go back after reading The Ninja's Blade. She was going to go back and read a chapter with sensei because it was like therapy and wisdom that she wanted, and she needed to go back and read it. And so when I was writing those scenes, it was so meaningful on so many points. And then there are some scenes that just break my heart. Oh my God. And The Ninja's Blade, where with these kids, these girls, and it's like, oh gosh. And then in the middle of it, there will be one with one of these teenagers that just has me laughing out loud. And I'm like, how'd that happen? So yeah, it's those moments that just, they bring a smile onto my face. But, sometimes those chapters take a long time to write. They don't always just blow out.
Now, I have my favorite character, by the way, in the book is her dad. I love her dad. I wish he was in more of the book because he's just so much fun to read. So I need to see the guy who played the professor in the Avengers movies, the one who gets taken over by Loki.
Mm.
I can't remember his name. He's who I see in my head. I know he's probably a little old for a dad, but that's who I see in my head. And he's just one of those characters you like from the first moment you meet him.
Yeah.
So who, other than Lily, who are your favorite characters in the story?
Oh, goodness. Well, of course, her parents. I have a whole thing with her grandfather, Gong Gong. Oh man, that he's a problem. He's got an agenda, and yet, he's so meddlesome, and I love him, but oh my God, he's troublesome. And her grandmother, oh, she's so darn adorable. In the first book, Tran. Whoa, Tran. Yeah, he was a thing. In the second book, there's a character, Dala, that just, my goodness, she's quite a character, and I cannot talk about her because there's so many things that you're going to have to know about her. And then there's Josie on Hollywood Boulevard. Oh, that gal.
Yeah, Alicia's one of my favorites as well.
Oh.
Now, is she based on anyone in particular, or is there a real person behind Alicia?
What a soul mama she is. It's interesting. When I start writing, I like visuals, so I'll look for pictures. I have the character in mind, and then I want to see somebody's face. See a face behind that. And Baba is actually my cousin-in-law. It's my North Dakota Norwegian cousin's farmer husband, who is like a salt of the earth guy. And so in my mind, that's what Baba looks like. So some people are family. Some people are just some random photo. Josie was like that. I was looking and I saw this gal and I went, oh my gosh, that's her. Dala was that way. I saw her. I knew who she was. I saw her picture, random gal. And I went, that's her. So when I'm looking at Alicia, there's an actress, and I'm completely blanking on her name, and NCIS New Orleans. She's the medical examiner. She's
see her face, but I can't pull out the name. Yeah.
Yeah, and those cheeks and that face and that personality, and that's who I think of as Alicia. Nice.
So, other than this series, and you're pretty deeply invested in this, what other writing projects do you have going on? And what about those trunk novels that you have?
The what?
The trunk novels, the ones that you wrote before you wrote Ninja Daughter.
Oh yeah, that's true. There's there could be some exciting news to say about that at some point.
Really?
Yeah, there could be. So we'll see. But yeah, the first novel that I was writing, there were two in submission. One was Lily Wong, and I had the second book to that, all outlined chapter by chapter summary and partially written, tucked away, because this is how I do things. And I had this other book, and it was quite different. And this was based on a screenplay that I did a couple of decades ago that ended up being a semi-finalist for the Academy Nicole Fellowship. And everybody said this should be a novel. And so I wrote a novel. And that became the piece on which I learned my craft. And so it went through many, you read one of those versions. It didn't just get rewritten. It went through complete overhauls, and it's an epic story, and there's so many ways of telling it. And so I explored with these different ways. And that actually involves the black magic of Brazil. As I said, it has a very broad scope. It takes place on 3 continents over 40 years with a past life in 1560 France, because why not, right? It's out there. And it has this amazing, empowering character. So there's that. And there's the sequel to that I also, who knows if it will ever be a sequel, but I planned it out, and it was outlined, chaptered, and partially written, a third written actually, and that's set in Bali. And it has to do in present time, but it coincides with the past life of the 1966 Indonesian massacres. and deals with Balinese occult. So, wow, this is not crime fiction, right? And then there was a fifth novel. So I had 2 novels in submission. I had possible sequels for both completely laid out and set aside. And then I started a 5th novel that was based on one of my short stories. A lot of my novels have come out of short stories. The Ninja Daughter came out of a short story. That Brazilian Thing came out of a screenplay. And this 5th novel came out of a 10,000 word. It was actually a long fiction, not a very short story for an apocalypse anthology. And so I wrote that. I laid it all out, and I was halfway into writing it when I got the 2-book deal for, Lily Wong. So I had to set that aside. I had to do the edits for Lily Wong. I had to write The Ninja's Blade. And then I went back and I finished that book during the pandemic. Now, why do I say it like that? Because it's a dystopian thriller set in an antimicrobial resistant future. Yeah, I was writing and things were happening, and I'm like, I really hope I'm not causing this.
I feel your pain on that. I mean, my most recent graphic novel is Pandemica, which came out, which I wrote last year, but it's a little prescient. So yeah, I feel your pain. Now, you and I also have another connection in that you wrote a really great piece of poetry for Weird Tales.
Oh yeah! Oh, you can see it over my shoulder.
I can.
Yeah.
So how do you write poetry very often?
No. Well, I did when I was in high school. I thought I was going to be Susan Polis Schultz. I actually tried to get a book of poetry published. It was probably not very good. There was a lot of angst with my mother at the time. That whole mother-daughter thing. Don't know where Lily gets it. Although her mother and daughter thing is a little different than my mother and daughter thing. But still, we Chinese, we have our thing. So no, I don't usually write poetry. Interestingly enough, this was a narrative poem, and I didn't set out to write a poem. I was looking for something, interestingly enough, to go into the Scary Tales anthology. And when I was researching Scary Tales, I came across these narrative poems, and I went, ooh, I like that. I could do something with that. And so I wrote this twisted, quirky narrative poem. It takes up like 3 pages with this gorgeous illustration that they did for the Weird Tales magazine. Oh, wow. And Amelia Delia Lee. And it's this, I don't even know where this story came out. I wrote this thing, and afterwards I read it to my son. And of course, I love reading things aloud, as you can well imagine. And he was just like, so, yeah, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, when I first read it, I'm like, what? I mean, it was really good, but it's so different from any voice I've heard from you creatively. And it's like, what? I know things are legal for recreation here in California, but what was she on when she took this? It's a really great piece, and it nicely shows your range, which is fantastic. And it's in issue 363 of Weird Tales. People should grab that as well.
I appreciate that. My agent, Nicole Rosanetti, the Seymour agency, she calls me a chameleon. And so, people ask author brand, right? And they think, they ask you. And I always say, well, I'm in the Jonathan Maberry camp. My brand is me. Yeah. And it's whatever I want to write. And there's a general theme of empowerment that tends to come through things, though Amelia Delia Lee totally didn't follow that. But, I want to write whatever my wild imagination can come up with. So Lily Wong is most definitely crime fiction, mystery thriller. It is just locked into that. Whether I'll come up with another crime fiction, mystery thriller, I have no idea.
Well, I mean, the other piece that I read, the one that, deals with folklore, it's not a straight mystery crime thriller. So, I hope that gets published one of these days. That would be fun.
Indeed.
Yeah. Secretive Smile. Okay.
I know.
And we're just about out of time, unfortunately. This was a fast hour. So where, what's next for you? I mean, you're writing the next book, but what else do you have cooking right now?
Well, I'm feeling really under the gun, because I've got to, so I'm looking at that word count and I'm pushing it forward, and I'm trying to get it, this third Lily Wong book written and rewritten and beta readers and polished and submitted before I go to Shanghai, because I'm going to be a grandma.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah. And here's a real fun thing. This is one of those weird things where, my life, so much of my life went into Lily Wong, right? So, my real life informed a lot of my fiction. And then this weird serendipitous thing where fiction in real life intertwined with the fiction. My son fell in love with a Hong Konger woman. He met her in Portland, Oregon. They work for Nike, but she's born and raised in Hong Kong. Go figure, So my granddaughter is, she's born in she's going to be born in Shanghai, because that's where my son and my daughter-in-law are right now. And a couple of years ago, they brought my husband and my youngest son and I to Shanghai to celebrate their first Christmas together. This is when they were just engaged. And they brought over her parents, and we traveled together to Hangzhou. We spent Christmas in Shanghai and traveled to Hangzhou, and we went to Hong Kong and, met her whole family and, played mahjong in their apartment. It was amazing.
That's fantastic.
So. Yeah.
Well, Tori, this has been great as always. For those watching and for those who watch later on archive, Ninja's Blade, fantastic book. It's available in print and ebook. Is it going to be available in audio?
It already is out there.
Oh, it is available in audio.
Yes,
so
it is. There's
audiobooks
for both of them. Mm-hmm.
And you can order signed copies through Mysterious Galaxy Bookstore. So definitely do that. And best of luck with this and with your other projects, Tori. And it's always a lot of fun to have this conversation with you.
Thanks so much. Mwah.
Well, I am going to go ahead and step in because I have the unfortunate job of having to end the event, which is always sad to have to do with Jonathan and Tori. But we are so lucky to have you guys as authors of our store. And don't forget, guys, you can get signed copies of this book, which is pretty freaking awesome if you ask me. So link is right down below there for you. And happy book birthday to both of you guys. This is a pretty awesome way to have a week with two of our favorite authors. But we are going to go.
Constance, before we leave real quick, we're both going to be coming into the store to sign stock. So what's the best cutoff date so that they can get request personalized books from us?
Yes. So 1 week after the event is when we cut it off. So today is the 2nd, so then add 7 days, so then the 9th, and then Jonathan's event was yesterday, so 1st, so then the 8th. Does that make sense? 8th for Jonathan, 9th for Tori. There we go.
And by the way, I don't just sign it. I'm going to stamp it with my personal Ninja Warrior chop.
Nice.
I've got such a thing. How cool is that?
Freaking cool.
Right. It has my Ninja Warrior name in there somewhere, which is Miyotoshi, which means Warrior of the Unfathomable Blade.
Nice. I think my martial arts name is Big Hairy Weirdo, but yours is cooler than mine. Yeah.
Mine would be She Who Eats Cupcakes. That would be
Well, Constance, thank you, and Tori, thank you. This was great.
All right.
Thank you so much, Jonathan and Tori. Have a good night, everybody.